Welcome to the chat, guys. Just to give you guys a heads up, I would definitely look at the weather pattern here. So, Road America race session. Let me go back here. Sorry. So practice sessions and track guides are always set with this Thursday session. So it'll be this one here. But I highly recommend looking at race session as well. You can see the forecast. Go to clouds and precipitation. And there's something to note here. All of a sudden, there is a 66% chance of rain. Definitely for the first hour of the race, an hour and a half. We do have ×2 weather, so it'd probably be the first 45 minutes. It looks like there'll be rain qualifying. Just be aware of that. And then it tails off. So because of the two times multiplier, it's actually going to go till about 2:30ish here. So there is a slight chance of rain near the end, but it's pretty minimal, 5%. But definitely, I would practice a little bit in the rain because if start of the race and qualifying looks like it's going to be some rain. So just be aware of those things. And then when you want to come and practice as if you're doing the track guide or the same conditions as the track guide, you come in here for the February 5th session, view session. This is static conditions. So all you have to do is grab whatever car you want. Let's go with the GR86, but whatever car you're going to grab, come in here, go test drive. And then it's static conditions, everything's static. So you just hit the test drive and you're good to go. All right, welcome to the track guide. BMW M2. Don't forget, go into your garage settings, set your -5%. I ended up doing quite a few laps this time because I kept messing everything up. This is very difficult to nail every single corner. I believe in my fast lap there was a corner that I messed up. I don't remember how to do splits. There you go. So yeah, optimal 222.505. On my best lap where no, it's fine. There's not too many sectors here. Maybe just the first corner that I lost a little bit of time, but overall it's pretty good. So let's just stick with this one. So I'm going to play it at full speed and then we will talk about it. So there you go, 222.741. So let's dive into it a little bit deeper here. So turn one. Um, Honestly, I this is the one that I screwed up the most often. I would tend to miss getting into the curbs, but honestly, I think my faster version, the one that I did at point 0.9, I missed the apex completely. So there is some time there to be gained as well. Um, what things to consider though? This is a long straightaway, so GT4s we're going to be wanting to pass you. If there's any GR86s, you might want to pass them, but remember the overtaken rules, you must have overlap before the braking zone. So your braking zone is pretty much the 4 cones. Their braking zone is pretty much the 3 cones. So just be aware of that. Is if you get on the brakes here, you must have overlap with them already. Um, if you want to save fuel, I would suggest letting off, coasting before this. If you're not comfortable with braking at that point, I would suggest instead of braking earlier, maybe just lift and coast a little bit. That helps settle the car. So I would recommend maybe lifting and coasting starting around here and then getting on the brakes around that kind of marker. I think that's the best way to kind of get quicker without pushing your braking boundaries a little bit. Is if you can't brake at the same point that I'm braking at, um, try lifting a little bit earlier, coasting for a bit, and then getting on the brakes there. It tends to make the platform a little bit more stable. So this is a push lap for equality though. So we're going to slow down. You can see pavement, the 4 cones. I'm already starting to get on the brakes and I'm pretty much off the throttle where the cones are. Stay nice and wide, pretty heavy on the brakes. And then as I'm getting close to this curb is when I like to start to turn in. I struggled with this BMW quite a bit trying to get the turn in right. So sometimes you have to. I found with this track specifically, I'd have to turn in earlier than I really would have liked, just to try to get the front end to turn. Otherwise, because there's no downforce, so it's hard to kind of get this to turn in. So again, here I'm starting to release the brakes and starting to turn in before this curbing. I like getting right up on the curb, and I. So there's two ways of rotating this car. It depends on the speed of the corner, and it depends on the situations. But the two situations are typically a really hard blast on the brakes to get that rear end to kind of lock up and kind of turn a little bit. And then there's the slam on the throttle, try to get the traction control to slip method. So there's those two methods. In this specific method, I'm trying to use the throttle. So I'm trying to use the throttle to blast it so that the rear end rotates because I found the front end was kind of understeery for this corner. So this is what I'm kind of doing here. On the times that I missed my turn in, I would do the opposite, where I would slam kind of on the brakes a little bit harder to try to get that rear end to slide out, and then I would get on throttle. So if you're overshooting, uh, definitely give it like a little stab on the brake, just a little quick stab on the brake. It tends to get the rear end out. Just be careful because that will get the rear end out. So if you do too much, you'll spin out. But I kind of use those two methods specifically with this car because it is a very unstable platform. Um, but yeah, I'll talk about that again a little bit later on, I'm sure. Coming into this corner here, I like to get right on the curb, even almost a little over the curb, and track out. See, you can see I did it right here. So I just blast the throttle to try to get that rear end to, and then you can see the steering wheel immediately. That's a really good example, actually. So you can see here, I'm like hesitant on the throttle because I'm like, oh, I think I might have overshot this. And then I'm like, you know what? Blast it. So I just jump on that steer. You can see here, I'm trying to actually, let's slow this down even more. You can see here, I'm coming off the throttle because I'm like, oh, I'm going too much. And then I just like, nope, all right, let's just blast it. And you can watch the steering wheel. I immediately have to kind of counter steer because it wants to go out. So that is a very useful thing to watch out for in this car is when you think you're going to understeer, sometimes it goes counterintuitive, but sometimes it's good to just, this specific car, is to hit the throttle, get that rear end to slide out, and then you can kind of counter steer into it. You can see by the tire marks here, sometimes it doesn't work either. Sometimes you go off track. But in this occasion, because I hit the apex well, it was able to do that. In this circumstance where I went off the track, I had already missed the apex, and I tried to blast the throttle to try to get it to go back, the rear end step out. But that was my mistake. I should have stabbed the brakes, similar to this, but on the brake side, to get the rear end to kind of come out first and then get on the throttle. But in this corner here, I'm going out wide. I want to get back on the track before this section here. This little straightaway, you might be able to get by one GR86. Just be aware that this is a straightaway, but it also curves. So we're going to come down. We're going to start looking at it. If you're on the inside of a GR86, the natural braking line is straight, but the track is turning. So if there's a car on your outside, if you're on the inside here, just be aware that they are also coming right. So you can't just brake in a straight line. You're going to have to brake going kind of to the right. Same with if there's a GT4 coming to your inside. Just be aware, I'm not doing the video for the GT4, but be aware that they shouldn't brake straight. They should kind of turn to the right on their braking as well. So stay out as wide as possible. I think GT4s will probably be able to pass through this little straightaway, maybe one or two of them. But for qualifying, you're going to be looking around the 2 marker. There's little painted white lines on the track. There's 4. There's 3. Here's the 2. And you can see I'm getting off the throttle and onto the brakes. This one I like. So the last corner I was in 4th gear. This one I'm going down to 3rd gear. Fairly hard on the brakes, and I'm going to wait quite late to turn in for this one. So you can see there's a little ripple in the white line. It's kind of where I'm starting to, like, you can see my steering wheel here is to the left. So what I'm doing is I'm opening up the corner and I'm building that slip angle on the tire. So if I'm turning left, I'm going to slowly start turning right, just gradually. That allows the tires to fall into that little slip angle and stabilize, so you can get more corner and speed out of it. You'll see here, I'm starting to turn right. There's a little ripple. I'm turning right, getting off the brakes. Getting off the brakes, just trail braking slightly. And then I'm going to get on throttle. What I want to do is I want to get my 2 right tires on the curb. This curb isn't as cambered as some of the other curbs on this track, but it does have a slight camber. So it's nice to get onto this, and it kind of hooks into the curb. And especially at the exit, there's a bit of a dip where it cambers a little bit more, and it really works well to come out of this corner. So I like getting on throttle before I get into the dip, and then I use that to help me turn the car. And then I'll come all the way out wide and make sure I don't go too far off here. I think the off track is a little bit out here. You can kind of dip your tires in the dirt a little bit, but there is an off track out there. Straightaway. This is a straightaway, but obviously has turns in it. If you're qualifying, you're going to come out wide. You're going to cut across it underneath the bridge. And then as the track goes left, you're going to cut across it as well. In a race, multi-class, be very aware there might be a bunch of GT4s flying by you. There might be GRE6s in front of you. I've advised the GRD6s to kind of stay to one side when they see traffic coming. So either the outside or the inside, whichever one, but they need to stick to kind of one side. If they're side by side and there's no room for you to go around, you're going to have to hit the brakes and wait till they finish their thing, and then you get by around safely. Season 1, if you watch the Season 1, you'll see at one point there was a shitload of cars. I think it's in the incident report video. There was a lot of cars that just decided they were going to go in the grass. They all got penalties for that. So yeah, you're supposed to remain on track at all times. If there are cars fighting in front of you, and there is no space for you, then you're going to have to back out and wait your turn type situation. So again, either stick to one side if there's GT4s or GRD6s and make the safe moves. But as you can see for qualifying, here's where the track goes left, and I'm kind of cutting across left. So if there's cars coming, You can't just weave down the straightaway like if you were in quali. You kind of have to follow the line of the track and not your race and line situation. Braking, there's markers here, 5, 4, 3. I'm braking at the 3, and I'm going to brake quite aggressive. If you're not comfortable with that, again, I would suggest maybe lifting off the throttle, maybe around the 5 or the 4, coasting up into the 3, and then get on the brakes. So that way you lose a little bit of speed, but you save a little bit of fuel, and the platform stables out before you hit the brakes, and then you can push down into the braking zone here. So we'll get closer. Obviously, for overtaking, if there's a bunch of GT4s, they might want to go to the inside. Just be aware of that. The GR86s are braking around the 2 marker. So if you want to overtake them, make sure you kind of do it before you get to the 3. Keep an eye on the exit as well. There's you can push out nice and wide on this exit. Actually, we'll talk about that when we get there. So let's get to the 3 marker here. So we're getting to the 3 marker, heavy on the brakes, off the throttle. I'm opening up this corner here. You can come right over the curb, open up the corner as wide as possible. Just try to carry that momentum. You can see I'm like on and off the brakes quite a bit depending on where I am going down the hill. That's just monitoring the brakes, making sure I don't kind of get in the ABS. And then I'm going to start turning in before, well, you can see this straightens out, right? So there's like a kink, and I'm kind of opening it up, and then I come left. So I'm starting to, it's not turning right, I'm going straight. But you can see I'm already kind of starting to steer a little bit. This is a shift. I'm not actually on throttle, it's just downshifting. I'm just opening it up, and pretty much right where this kink happens is kind of where I'm coming across the most. Now, boom, okay, I'm coming to come across. This is one of these curbs that is cambered. It used to be more cambered. You can see down here, this cambers quite aggressively. This curb used to camber, I think, a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I get my 2 left tires on it. I'm getting on throttle pretty much at the apex, and I'm going to push myself nice and wide all the way to the exit. This is the exit curb. Be aware, if you're side by side going through here and you're the car on the inside, the car on the outside is going to come back on track. So at this point, the car inside is expected to come to the left, allow room for this car to come back on track. Obviously, if the car on the inside decides he's going to run you wide and not give you that space, be aware that might happen. That's really not in the sportsman-like conditions, so you can definitely report that. You can't just block a car from rejoining when this is the racing line. They will be told to give you the position back, or not back, but give you room to rejoin the track. I say that in the GR86 video. So yeah, they're definitely supposed to give you the position so you can come back on track here. One thing to note is with this car, you can go up to 4th gear if you want. It's just a short little thing. Honestly, 3rd gear is fine too. The only thing I liked was it was just over revving into 3rd gear. Felt okay, but I felt when you were lifting off the throttle and braking, it kind of upset the car a little bit more for some reason, maybe more engine decompression. So I personally liked 4th, and then a quick shift to 4th, and then a quick downshift to 3rd when I was on the brakes. It seemed to help me turn in a little bit better, but that's just personal preference. So coming up the hill, there's the porta potty and the bridge. You're kind of braking more in line with the porta potty. So there was my downshift, light on the brakes, and then just progressively going up. And I'm going to try to turn in nice and early, get my left tires on the curb. Here I missed it, so there's definitely, let's see, I don't remember what sector this is, but let's see if we can spot anything. No, nothing too bad, but there's definitely some time lost here a little bit because I did miss the apex tiny bit. Definitely jump on the curb here. That'd be a quicker way of doing it. Open it up the corner and then just power through. This is in 3rd gear, all the way out to the right. Um, if you are behind a GR86 here, I don't suggest making the overtake. You're going to lose time through this section because there's not enough room to kind of get by them. So I would really kind of just suggest maybe taking it easier through this corner and allowing space for that GR86 in front of you. And then you should be able to kind of close in on them and then overtake them on the exit of this corner. Uh, Obviously, that doesn't always happen. I mean, if you're racing with somebody right on your ass, you might want to try to get side by side with the GR86. It's just that this car doesn't really handle this corner very well. Um, so I find it's nicer to just kind of open it up from full corner instead of like doing a really slow inside line for this corner. But qualifying, you're going to go right across here. And obviously, be aware GT4s might also want to get by you, and the natural line is kind of cutting across. So if you see somebody like on your inside that's peeking in your inside, it might be wise to just kind of stay a little bit to the right and defend the inside early, because if they get to your inside, this corner is so awkward with this BMW. I don't like going side by side with anybody through this one, unless it's another BMW, because then you kind of understand how to race with each other. But typically, I would try to stay to the inside here and defend this one so that GT4s can't get on my inside. I'll allow them to take the outside, and then for GR86s, to be honest, I don't even want to overtake them here. I'm going to wait to the following corner. You'll see here, heavy lift off the throttle. I want the front end to get way over this curb and into the grass. You'll see here my tire marks from previous laps. I really want to get my tires in the grass here. And I'm going to slowly, you can see I'm just holding on for dear life here. I almost go off. Let's see, do I actually touch grass on the outside? Yeah, I'm pretty much on the limit. And then on the inside here, definitely in the grass. With other cars, I don't really have to do that, but with this one, I seem to have to, like, if you really want to gain speed through this corner, you have to really push it to limits here. So I'm touching grass on the outside, touching grass on the inside. It's pretty hairy situation in that corner. If you stayed behind a GR86, here's the time you pass. Just go to the inside, and you can probably get one of them. I don't think two is possible, but you never know. GT4s will probably try to blast down the inside of you here, so be aware. You can come across the track. Your braking zone kind of in between the 3 and the 2. Again, if you're not comfortable with that pushing, I suggest lifting off the throttle earlier, coasting to that point, and then getting on the brakes. Try to get used to being on the brakes around there. So yeah, just a lift and coast before that. Same with like if cars are passing you, just lift even earlier. Allow them to get by you so you can tuck in behind them. Here's the 3. There's a white line. There's 2, and I'm already kind of in between. Off throttle, really hard on the brakes. Kind of opening up the corner as you're braking, you're slowly coming to the right, and then I'm going to start turning in. This one, honestly, I could have done a little bit faster. I think if I would have pushed my braking zone a little bit later, would have probably been better. Because I think I overslowed this one a tiny bit. You can definitely see the camber in the corner here for the curbs. This is one of the main ones. You definitely want to hook your left tires into this to allow more force to be able to be driven through here. So you can go a little bit quicker when you dip your left tires in this hole. This is one of those moments where the brake, my car's kind of understeering, and if you watch slowly, I'm going to kind of stab that brake a little bit harder. You'll see the steering wheel start to jerk to the right. This just turned the rear end, and now I'm getting on throttle. So I'm kind of doing both tactics here. I stab the brake a little bit harder. So almost off the brake, then I stab the brake a little harder. You can see the rear end want to step out, and then I get back on the throttle, and off I go. Here you can come out nice and wide. Um, Typically, I like to get close to this, but I don't think you really need to get too much further than that, because what you're going to do is cut back across the corner. This isn't very long, so I tend to not use the full amount of track, but I'll come back across to the left here. Open up the corner as much as possible underneath Mr. Sausage billboard here, and then I'm going to come in to the right. Initially, I find this one's a double apex corner, so I'm going to come in tight to the entry. I'm going to wash out midway, and then I'm going to get back on the throttle and use the throttle to rotate my car throughout the corner, because I want to hit the apex at the end of it where the curbs are. So you'll see here, I'm going to play it full speed first, and then I'll slow it down again. So washing out, brake in a little bit, hard on the throttle to get the rear end to turn out. And here is where I want to apex over this curb. So first apex up here, then I'm going to get on the brakes, wash out a little bit, get the car to rotate, boom, hit the throttle, that turns the rear end. You can see my steering wheel kind of go, and then I'm going to back off the throttle and then back on again. That was subtle, but that helped me turn the rear end. So hit that first throttle, you can see my steering wheel kind of dip, and then I'm going to back off the throttle a little bit and then back on again to get that rear end to turn a little bit. See, here's how I'm backing off because the rear end's coming out, and then I'm going to get back on. So it's just monitoring your throttle a little bit. And then I'm going to try to get that front end to get over this curb. Honestly, this was probably one of my best ones. This is exactly where you want the front end to be. Over this curb, and then power right out of it. The kink is dangerous, very, very dangerous. GRE6 take this flat out. We cannot. BMWs cannot take this flat out. It is in fact a very difficult corner to go through with this car. It tends to wash out on exit quite a bit, so be careful. I really don't recommend trying to make it side by side with a GR86 through this corner. And if you see GT4s coming up on you, I again recommend just backing out, give them the corner, pull in behind them. It's not a fun corner to go side by side in. Tiny little mistakes end up in huge wrecks. So be very careful with the kink. For us, on a quali lap, there's a 2 marker. There's 1. I'm going to dab on the brakes a little bit here. Get that initial turn in. Just a small dab, and then I'm going to coast a little bit. And then I'm going to get on the throttle here. Just initially, I'm just trying to, you can see I'm on, off, on, off, on, off. That's just to try to get the rear end to rotate a little bit. Because coming over here, the front end kind of understeers a little bit. And see how I'm tracking across the track here? I'm trying to get that rear end to rotate. So I'm like on, off the throttle, trying to get that rear end to rotate. Finally, it rotates with that big blast to throttle. I don't know if you could tell, but that last off, and then I'm big blast of throttle, and then the steering wheel finally, the rear end finally comes out, and I start kind of drifting into it. So this is one of these tactics where I was like, I was trying to get it to turn out, and it wasn't doing anything. So I just came off the throttle, really aggressive, and then back on the throttle, really aggressive, and that's when it finally did something. Again, you don't want to drift too much further than this. There's off tracks here, and when you come back on the track, I mean, if you're off track and there's cars coming, you're gonna have to make sure you come back on track kind of safely. If you're on this curb, you're fine. You can just kind of come back across the track. But again, like you look how difficult this was to try to make this corner. It's really not fun to try to do this side by side with another car. So I really recommend either backing out, letting the GT4 go, or if there's a GR86, maybe staying behind them and then get them on the straightaway. There's a big long straightaway here, so now is a nice safe time to pass them. This is similar to the other straightaway. It is straight, but it kinks left and right in all these corners. So saying I stuck to my line going straight is not really an excuse here. You're going to have to kind of give room depending on the inside or the outside if there's GT4s coming up. You can't just stay in the middle of the track and cut across when it's going left and say, oh, I stuck on my line. Like, no, you're going to have to follow kind of the groove of the track. GRD6s were told the same thing, so just be aware. If you're on the outside, stay to the outside, but you might have to like actually turn instead of just going straight, because this is a straightaway that does curve. For quality, we're cutting across it though. Canada corner is again a bit of a sketchy one with this car. I found getting hard on the brakes ended in me washing out quite a bit. So you're gonna have to experiment with this one a little bit. I brake in a little bit before the 4. So if you wanted to lift and coast, maybe do it a little bit earlier. I'm trying to get straight with this line here. So you can see here where I'm getting on the brakes. See, I'm already starting to get on the brakes here. There's a 4. I want to try to be straight along this white line when I'm getting on the brakes. So there's a 4. You can see here, slowly ramping it up. I'm trying not to get in the ABS. You can see the steering wheel is all over the place here. I'm trying not to get into that ABS because it's just squirrely. As I approach the 1, I'm going to start trailing off. Down into 3rd gear for this corner. I'm trailing. I'm already turning, so I'm turning roughly where the 1 is. I'm going to start turning in. Trail braking. Oh, I had to ramp it up a little bit here, so that's one of those, remember what I was saying, the tactics of trying to get the rear end to step out? Right here. Little stab of the brake, watch the steering wheel, turns around, and then I can just drift it nicely, hit the apex much better this way. So that shows you the 2 methods to turn this car is a little stab of the brake or a little in that kink. You can see I came right off the throttle and then slam back on the throttle again to get that rear end to step out. So you're going to have to kind of practice this in and around the track a little bit. The safer way is the throttle. The brakes, if you stab them a little too hard and get the rear end to step out too much, sometimes it's not recoverable. So just be cautious with how you do it, but you can play with both methods to try to turn this car a little bit. Here I'm getting on the throttle before the apex. I'm coming across. I do tend to get some tires in the dirt here a little bit. It's not too bad. And then nice and wide all the way to the exit. Be aware there is an off track. There might be a slowdown if you go too far on this one. I can't remember. But come across before the dirt here. My kitty's meowing at me. As you're coming across this track, be aware that there might be cars trying to overtake you. So if you can't, you might not be able to come right across the track. But in this circumstance, qualifying, it is doable. So I'm getting my right-hand tires on the curb. There's going to be a lift. So I'm turning in, lifting the throttle, all the way off the throttle, back on the throttle, off, on. You can see in my steering wheel, I want to get my 2 left tires like right on this curb. You don't want to go over the curb because there's that, you can see the hill kind of just pushes you out, but you want to get them right on the curb. And then you end up drifting out, drifting out, drifting out. You can see I'm drifting around, go all the way to the exit here, and then back across the track. This is one of these corners where you are braking in a straight line, but the track is not straight, so you are opening up your corner. If there's any cars on your inside or outside, just be aware of that. They're not going to be braking in this. They're going to be braking in a straight line or trying to open up the corner as well. So you can't just come straight across the track if there's a GRD6 on your inside here. Probably another best idea to kind of stay behind one because they are pretty quick through here. So I think as a BMW, we're kind of the slowest car in the corners. So sometimes it's just better to kind of stay behind or allow another car ahead. But quali, you can see there's a dark patch across the pavement here. This is a really good brake marker or a lifting off throttle marker. Boom, off the throttle, onto the brakes. I'm braking straight, but kind of diagonally at the same time. I'm kind of opening up the corner. I like coming across, trying to not quite getting on the outside curbing because I find that's kind of pushing the limit. I mean, you can. It's probably faster, but it's also super sketchy and unsafe for me to go that far. So I come pretty much up to it, but I don't really go on it. Using the brakes to kind of help me turn at this point. So where am I done? I'm pretty much done my braking as I'm kind of turning into this one. I find this corner in all cars a good, healthy lift and coast, like no braking, just kind of sitting there with nothing, no inputs whatsoever other than steering. Helps turn this car a lot. Pretty much any car, GR86, same thing. GT4, same thing. Um, you do your braking, and then at one point you just kind of wait it out. You just kind of coast. Once you feel that kind of grip kind of come in, that's when you kind of get on throttle early because there's a big long straightaway. So you want to focus all your exit speed coming across, cutting the grass a little bit. You can see here I'm fighting the steering wheel a little bit. The whole reason why I do that coast in is to try to maximize exit speed. So what I'm doing is I'm sacrificing a little bit of entry speed to make sure I nail the exit speed every time. All the way to the exit and come back on track before the exit here. And then it's just a straight line all the way to the end. There's your 222.741. Hopefully that helped. And we'll see you guys on track soon.